Oh, there we go. Um, yes, our session here, welcome to session 6. And the title of this presentation is The University as a Catalyst for Resilience, Aligning the Third Mission with the UN Sustainable Development Goals. Over to you, Dr. Gracia. You are muted at the moment.
Good morning, everyone. Thank you, Professor Keriwa. I'm here to present this paper. It's a pleasure to be here with you from Italy. Okay, let's introduce 1 second the topic, just to give you an idea about what we are talking for. When we talk about university, it's not only research and teaching, but there is something more. And especially there is a dimension, a social dimension of university. So please, next slide. Next slide again. Thank you. So is what I was telling to you. So we have something that is more important than the first mission, teaching. The second, research, is the third mission. So something that give the opportunity to the university environment to keep in touch with community. So we can say more than education is create a socio-economic interaction, something that is the opportunity that university have to give another value to the community, to people, not only to students. Next slide. Thank you. You know that since the 2015, the United Nations has developed the 17 Sustainable Development Goals. The idea to have a long-term vision to try to change something in the world, especially to try to have a good impact on the environment, on the social, on people, about everything. So the idea is try to create a strategy to engage and involve people and company, states, government, and at the same time, university. And it's why probably today we try to understand in which way the university try to be compliant in general on the Sustainable Development Goal. Next slide, please. I know that you just know perfectly the 17 Sustainable Development Goals. And I had the opportunity to study which goals fit better with the university, with what the university do. And I see that around the world, usually you depend of the university. Probably some university can support and develop 17 different goals. Some university just few. And there is a very nice website, especially because it's just a research and analysis about university around the world. And now I show you. Next slide, please. Is the time higher education impact rating. You have the link to the report. It's the annual report. And the approach is try to identify and map the global best practices around the world. So how university we can have an important social roles. Social roles in which terms? Let's think about, for example, the pandemic, the COVID-19. What's happened? That a big problem was about university for students. They can have the opportunity to go to follow lesson. They had no opportunity to meet other students, to study together. So for the first time, the university developed something that was the distance learning. Was, we can say, a new technological trend, but due by an important crisis, the COVID-19. So in this case, you can understand how much is important for university to be resilient. So to try to change, to create each time like a tailor-made dress to solve different problems. Next slide, please. Okay, as you can see here, we have the first 4 university in terms of key indicator for the Sustainable Development Goal. Australian University, so Western Sydney University is the first one. We can say that it's interesting to analyze the impact of different university on the environment, on social. But sometimes, it's so general. Because probably, just to give you an idea, probably we have a university that have a very best practices managing the waste. That's fine. That's fine for the community, but probably it's not the real added value for a university. Next slide, please. It's why I had the opportunity to try to focus on a specific universities that are university that works on music and arts, something that around the world we call higher education in arts, or probably conservatory of music. As you can see, we are talking about university, but we are talking about university that sometimes is so difficult to understand about which kind of impact they can have. Why? And now I show the importance of this kind of university. Next slide, please. Usually around the world it's tangible to understand the impact of third mission. Why? Because probably we have a new intellectual property. We have a new business made by a spin-off of a center of research of a university, and it's fine. We can say, we can calculate the amount of money, the profit of the business sometimes. Again, it's probably for traditional university very easy to have the KPI, key performance indicators, about a new company, a new business, probably a new partnership with government, with local government and administration. That's fine. It's very beautiful. But when we talk about culture, about arts, about music, sometimes it's something intangible. Because in which way we can analyze and understand the real value of a concert? Just looking how many tickets we have sell? Probably, you can understand is a very no deep approach. Next slide, please. So it's why I had the opportunity to analyze which sustainable development goal fit more with the University of Music and Arts. And it's normal to think something that's more related to creative economy, to social inclusion, for example, or something related to the cultural improvement of the society, something that sometimes is intangible, but is the real beauty of the essence of the university. Next slide, please. For this reason, I have tried to develop a new indicator. It could be just, we can say, probably the first step to give a new perception, to give also a new perspective to the University of Music and Art. The name of this index is Amici. You know, the word amici in Italian's language means friends. So means friendship, partnership, collaboration. So the idea is how much a university can create friendship, how much a university can be the resilience of a community, resilience in terms of change of culture, of improvement of culture. And next slide, please. I show you in which way each university can try to, we can say, start the self-evaluation to understand what the university are doing. Okay, let's think about for each sustainable development goal, you can see here the core of the sustainable, so like creative economy, social inclusion. And then I have tried to develop questions or general questions to give the idea about how the university can improve the relation with the community. Just to give you an idea, let's read just a few. How effectively do you use art to foster community dialogue on important issues? We are using art and music to create probably a new awareness on people. You know how much is important convey a message using art. Okay, so the idea is manager of a university, but also professor and students, we can say probably the board of a university, can use these questions to acquire real awareness about what we are doing to have a real cultural impact on a community. Next slide, please. For each question, we have a specific score. And the idea is at the end, we have a specific result. Next slide, please. We have some example of question and of answer. So for each answer, we have specific result, specific score. And at the end, we have a total result. Next slide, probably we have to next slide more, another, please. Another, the last one. Okay, so as you can see, this, the slide before, more, another, no, before that, sorry. Okay, yes, as you can see, is important to see the real score. The real score is the opportunity for managers to say, okay, probably I have to review my strategy, or probably I can do more. Okay, is the real opportunity for the university to change something. Okay, and probably is why we.
Oh, it appears like it's cut off. We don't know whether it's going to come back soon.
Can we move to Dr. El Halas's recording? Dr. Carrero, we do have a recording ready. And then
Okay,
if Professor DeGracia is able to log back in, it looks like he lost his internet connection.
all right.
Then we can just pick up where he left off.
Mika is going to upload that one. It's a video. There was also a deck of slides, but I don't think she's there to present them.
That's right. She sent an MP4 video because she's not able to attend in person.
Yeah, so Mika, are you able to upload the video?
Good morning. It is an hour to take part in this international conference devoted to the role of architectural heritage in strengthening resilience in today's world. In time marked by rapid urbanization, climate change, and the social transformation, the question of resilience has become central to architectural and urban thought. For Morocco, a country of profound historical um, depth and cultural diversity, our architectural heritage represents not only a testimony to the past, but also a living source of knowledge and inspiration for the future. From the ancient medinas of Fez, Marrakesh, and Tetuan to the Xur
Dr.
and
Carrero,
Kisra
Professor DeGracia
in
has
Morocco,
reconnected.
and
I'm wondering if
vernacular
we can pause
houses
this
preserved
presentation.
unique.
Okay, can we pause? Yes. Um,
And if Mika
me,
can
me,
reload Professor DeGracia's slides.
Hello.
Hi.
So, hello.
yeah.
Sorry, in a foreign country, sometimes the connection is not good.
Oh yes, it's
Oh,
completely
yeah,
fine. You are
yeah.
still our hero by joining this conference from a train. You remain our hero. So we're just going to reload your slides, and then you can just carry on from where you
Oh
left off.
yes, I only need just 2 minutes, then it's finished.
Okay.
Okay. Are you going to be available for the Q&A at the end of the session,
Oh
Dr. De?
yes, probably.
Okay.
If you want, I have also my slides. Let
Oh,
me
we have them
see.
here.
Okay, as you
Just need a
prefer.
second. There we
Right.
go. We have them now. Go ahead.
Okay, next slide, please. Okay, so as you can see, probably the way to use this uh, survey is the opportunity for AFAM. When we talk, about AFAM, we are talking about the higher education in music and art in Italy. Is an Italian acronym, but is I started from Italian higher education because I am president of quality office in Italy, and probably the opportunity to measure the real impact of this kind of university and community give a totally new approach about what? About the fact that, you know, the third mission is not only made by money, is not only made by new agreement and contract and partnership between entity, but is made by human creative. And which is the way to have a real, we can say, social resilient transformation only by the humans. Next slide. Uh, just for finish, I wish to give you a suggestion. Uh, for a long time, we have probably believed that the Baumol cost disease related to the cultural project. So the idea that when we talk about music, but let's think about opera theater, usually it's impossible to reduce cost of production. Let's think about today in a university, we have artificial intelligence and new technology. So it's more easy to cut the cost. But for culture and art, it's difficult. You can use artificial intelligence to sing at opera theater, you know. But the idea is, it's true that we have a very important cost, but at the same time, it's true that we can build resilience using art and music. You know why? Because probably the capacity of University of Art and Music is to generate something more than money, is to generate social, cultural, artistic, and human capital. So something probably intangible, but really crucial for the also the evolution of a community of humans in general. Next slide. It's why, just for finish, I say it's probably a call to action to managers of university to say, please try to use Amici index. It's just a first step to recreate your strategy. It's just the first step probably to understand and mapping your real impact, how much you can be a point of resilience for your community. And when we talk about community, we are not talking only about the city of the university, but probably a region and probably a nation, a country. Next slide. It's the last slide just to say thank you for your attention, just to say thank you. It's an honor to stay with you here. And if you need the questions, if you need the survey, I will send to you. If you work as a manager or professor in the University of Music and Art, I will be ready to support you to change and to create the resilience that the community needs. Thank you so much.
Okay, thank you so much, Dr. Gracia. I hope you'll be able to take some questions later, if your connection allows. If your connection allows you. Thank you.
Thank you so much, dear professor.
Okay. Okay, we go back to the video recording. If Mika is able to upload it back. And the title here is Architectural Heritage as a Source of Resilience in the Contemporary World.
Good morning. It is an honor to take part in this international conference devoted to the role of architectural heritage in strengthening resilience in today's world. In time marked by rapid urbanization, climate change, and the social transformation, the question of resilience has become central to architectural and urban thought. For Morocco, a country of profound historical um, depth and cultural diversity, our architectural heritage represents not only a testimony to the past, but also a living source of knowledge and inspiration for the future. From the ancient medinas of Fez, Marrakech, and Tétouan to the Ksur and Kasbah of southern Morocco and vernacular houses of Oujda, Figig, and Chefchaouen, Moroccan architecture reflects a continuous dialogue between people, place, and environment. My presentation today argues that architectural heritage in Morocco is an active reservoir of resilience, material, social, cultural, and institutional. I will develop these arguments in four parts. First one, a conceptual framework linking heritage and resilience. Second one, mechanism through which Moroccan heritage supports adaptation. Three, case studies illustrating this resilience in practice. And four, policy perspectives and future challenges. So for the conceptual framework, heritage and resilience, The notion of resilience emerged from ecological sciences and later extended to social and urban systems. It refers to the ability of a system to absorb disturbance, adapt to change, and transform while maintaining its essential identity. When applied to heritage, resilience means more than the physical endurance of monuments. It encompasses the capacity of heritage systems, tangible and intangible, to adapt to new contexts while preserving their meaning and continuity. Morocco offers a particularly rich laboratory for observing this dynamic. The country's architectural traditions have long been shaped by adaptation to diverse climates, for the humid Mediterranean north to the arid Sahara, and by the coexistence of multiple cultural layers, Amazigh, Arab Islamic, uh, um, colonial, etc. Donc, UNESCO's historic urban landscape approach, officially adopted by Morocco, proposes to integrate heritage management into broader social, environmental, and economic policies. In this sense, heritage is no longer seen as a constraint, but as a driver of sustainable urban resilience. For material and environmental resilience, traditional Moroccan architecture embodies a remarkable intelligence of the environment. For centuries, builders have used local, renewable, and low energy materials, earth, stone, palm wood, lime, responding precisely to climatic conditions. In the southern oasis, the compact morphology of the Ksur, the kalk earthen walls, and the limited opening ensure thermal comfort and protection from sand-laden winds. In the northern Medinas, narrow alleys, internal courtyard, and whitewashed walls minimize solar gain and optimize natural ventilation. In Ujda and Oriental region, courtyard houses and traditional hammams use passive cooling and heating strategies that modern architecture often rediscovers under the label of sustainable design. This environmental adaptation, rooted in centuries of empirical knowledge, is today being revisited by architects and researchers who see in vernacular methods a foundation for low carbon construction and climate resilience. So, beyond materials, architectural heritage in Morocco is deeply social. The Medina, the heart of Moroccan urban life, is organized around a mosque, souks, markets, fontaines, and the community institutions such as the fondok or caravanserai. This urban fabric creates a dense web of social relationships, mutual aid, and identity. Studies conducted by the Institute National of Science of Archaeology and Heritage in SAP, in Rabat, Morocco, and the schools, the national schools of architecture have shown that such urban forms foster strong community bonds, enhancing the ability of residents to face economic and environmental shocks. When heritage conservation involves local populations, as in the program of the rehabilitation of cities, of ancient cities like Fez, Meknes, Sawira, it strengthens not only the built environmental
Dr. Kuru, have we
environment,
lost
but
the audio?
also the sense of
I can
belonging
still hear.
and collective memory, essential a component of social resilience. And for economic and functional resilience, Morocco's architectural heritage has also become an important economic resource through adaptive use and heritage-based tourism. The transformation of the Kasbah of Taurit in Ouarzazate into a cultural and tourism site has revitalized local crafts and created employment. Like the girl of Marrakesh, an emblem of early 30th century architecture, has been converted into a cultural and exhibition space. In recent decades, Morocco has developed an evolving institutional framework for heritage management. The Ministry of Culture, UNESCO, and local development agencies have initiated numerous programs combining restoration, urban improvement, and social participation. These policies demonstrate a growing recognition that heritage conservation is not a luxury but a pillar of sustainable development and urban resilience. For example, we have a case study of Medina of Fez, Marrakesh.
Now it's gone. I think the video has some technical issues there. I was hearing it very clearly, but now it's gone. Mika, do you know what has happened?
Yes, it's the video is done. Finished.
Okay. It ended abruptly anyway. Okay. I think it's available for playing at any time by if you are able to access it. Let's move on. Our next presentation is Dr. Linda is going to upload the slides. It's titled Echoes of Defiance, the Steel Pan as Sonic Resistance and Cultural Resilience. And Dr. Toro Brown, I think, is here to present.
Yes, thank you. Good day. My name is Dr. Josephine Torrell Brown from the University of Trinidad and Tobago. Today we explore the steel pan not just as a musical instrument, but as a vessel of cultural memory, resistance, and resilience from slavery to present day. The steel pan, originating from a tiny island state in the Caribbean, Trinidad and Tobago, tells a story from colonial suppression to global celebration. We are all aware of the history of slavery. In Trinidad, like other colonies, enslaved Africans faced brutal conditions. They attempted to hold on to perhaps the only thing they had and what mattered, their spirit, culture, and connection. Music, dance, and especially drumming became powerful tools of identity, but plantation owners saw this as a threat, so they banned drummings and gatherings. This led to protests. However, in 1838, the African slaves were freed through emancipation. The Africans took to the streets celebrating with music and dance. This became known as canboulay and progressed into a carnival tradition. But the colonial elite saw it as a disorder. So again, they banned drumming and street revelry. So then, how free were the Africans really? So in 1881, they fought back. Known as the Canboulay riots, these weren't just protests, they were cultural resistance, a bold stand against control, a fight to reclaim space, sound, and identity. This image represents the actual ordinance passed in 1884, which again banned the use of African drums in Canboulay celebrations and gave the police authority to go into people's homes and seize their instruments and arrest the persons. Restrictions were also placed on the size of carnival bands, aiming to control public gatherings. These measures were seen as direct attacks on Afro-Trinidadian cultural expression. The result? Widespread tension and violent outbursts, highlighting the struggle for cultural autonomy under colonial rule. So Frantz Fanon, and I'm quoting here, he says that violence is a cleansing force. It frees the native from his inferiority complex and from his despair and inaction. It makes him fearless and restores his self-respect. So I'm just bringing in the theory to fit within the era and what happened. Now, after African drums were banned in the 1880s, determined to preserve their culture, the Africans cut bamboo in different sizes and created rhythmic instruments known as tambour bamboo. When these were also banned by colonial authorities, they turned to metal objects like biscuit tins, dustbins, and car parts. In hitting the tins, they realized that dents produce different tones. This led to experimentation using discarded 55-gallon oil drums, evolving into the steel pan, also simply called pan, an instrument capable of full chromatic ranges and any genre of music can be played on the instrument. This journey, turning suppression into creativity and cultural identity, reflects resilience. These video excerpts I'm about to show demonstrate the early process of making a steel pan. And I'm quoting Eldon 1992, when he says that the physical actions to make a pan, beating, slapping, striking, coughing, or burning, are the normal somatic projections of anger and veiled hostility, unquote. This suggests that pan making was not just technical. It carried deep emotional and psychological meaning, transforming suppressed energy into creative expression. Back then, steel pan wasn't celebrated. It was scorned, dismissed as noise. Players were labeled bajans, vagabonds, and seen as lower class. Boys were stigmatized for playing. Both boys and girls were prohibited from going to pan yards and sometimes punished if caught doing so. And what did the colonial authorities do best? Suppress culture. There were police raids in pan yards, bans on drumming again, and restrictions on street performance. But here's the thing. Out of that scorn and suppression came creativity. Steel pan rose as a symbol of resistance, pride, and identity. Steel pan started from discarded oil drums, once seen as junk, now a global instrument. From being raided by police to becoming safe spaces for creativity and identity, panyards have become more than rehearsal spots. They are cultural hubs for transmission, community, and continuity. Pan moved from barrack yards to streets to the classrooms, which suggests formal recognition and acceptance that was unimaginable during its days of suppression. A huge leap from being banned and marginalized to being celebrated as a national treasure, the steel pan is the official national instrument of Trinidad and Tobago. It's a global ambassador, flipping stigma into pride, even gifted to dignitaries such as Prince Charles and Camilla. And as you see in this photo here, pan has evolved dramatically from oil drums to acoustic steel pans, and now to digital innovations like the percussive harmonic instrument known as Phi, shown in the photo. There are also pan apps and steel pan sound featured in video games. Edward Said reminds us that resistance is not only a reaction, but a form of cultural creation. Stuart Hall also argues that identity is not a set of fixed attributes, the unchanging essence of the inner self, but a constantly shifting process of positioning, a never completed process of becoming. Today, the steel pan is played worldwide, from the Caribbean to Europe, North America, Asia, and Africa. It features in over 100 diasporic carnivals, including Caribana in Canada and Notting Hill in London. In 2022, the United Nations declared August 11th as World Steel Pan Day, celebrated all over the world, honoring its global cultural impact. And Trinidad and Tobago has fortunately secured geographical indication status for the steel pan, legally affirming its origin and authenticity, similar to champagne or Swiss watches. Pan has moved from stigma and suppression to becoming a prestigious instrument on international stages, in orchestras, festivals, and even film soundtracks, such as the most recent, The Little Mermaid. This video excerpt is an example of the status that pan has attained, a move from marginalized roots to becoming a tool of cultural diplomacy, projecting Caribbean identity on the world stage. This is a performance by the UK All-Steel Percussion Orchestra at the Queen's Platinum Jubilee in London. We see all over the world where pan is performed, there are huge crowds, combination of ethnicity, race, creed, status, etc. Pan has reached far. And I just want to bring this into the cultural resistance theory and sound studies by LaBelle, who suggests that sound is a means for constructing and inhabiting space, for asserting one's presence, and for building forms of solidarity. For players, it's not just performance. So I'm going to share with you, now in Trinidad and Tobago, and all over where there are diasporic carnivals, there is a large competition called Panorama Competition, where steel bands vie for a coveted prize and bragging rights. Pardon me if you hear music in the background, someone on the street is passing. So I'm going to let us look at this year's Panorama champions. Republic Bank Exodus is the name of the steel band. Let us look especially at the players. Watch how sound moves through them. So again, For players, it is not just performance, it's cultural affirmation and emotional liberation. Steel pan is cathartic, spiritual, and identity affirming. And I am quoting Elder, 1969, and he suggests that it would appear that the making of steel pan music serves the same purpose as occupational therapy through tension release. The actual beating out of tunes on the instruments has power to correct socially dangerous emotional states in the player. Unquote. I'm going to play two short excerpts again, demonstrating that steel pan represents emotional release through performance. It evokes joy, nostalgia, and unity. It isn't just heard, it is felt. It moves the body and the soul. So steel pan music is therapy in rhythm, accessible and inclusive, now transcending age, race, class, and ability. Bakhtin describes in his carnivalesque theory, describes carnival as a moment of temporary suspension of all hierarchical distinctions. He said the temporary liberation of carnival allows for expressive freedom and communal joy. Steel pan and carnival is ritual inversion, according to Bakhtin, challenging social hierarchies through sound. This framework illuminates how steel pan performance during carnival enacts ritual inversion, disrupting social stratification through sonic expression. I would just like to add that even today, yet in spite of all these improvements and achievements, steel pan still faces challenges in modern days. Just a few months ago, sponsorship of some steel bands were pulled in the middle of them preparing for the Panorama competition. However, they continue to be resilient. So in closing, I would like to recite the lyrics of the national anthem of Trinidad and Tobago, and I invite you to reflect on what was just presented. Forged from the love of liberty, in the fires of hope and prayer, with boundless faith in our destiny, we solemnly declare, side by side we stand, islands of the blue Caribbean Sea. This our native land, we pledge our lives to thee. Here every creed and race find an equal place, and may God bless our nation. And those two lines are repeated. Here every creed and race find an equal place, and may God bless our nation. Those aren't just poetic words, they are lived truths. Every time the drum was banged, our ancestors answered with invention. From skin drum to tambo bamboo to metal to steel pan, which was literally born in fire and defiance, as the anthem says. The Africans survived through hope and prayer. Trinbagonians exist through culture and a powerful sense of resilience and innovation. The tiny island of Trinidad has given a gift to the world. The steel pan unites communities and provides joy and emotional release. The notes on the steel pan sing what history tried to silence. Therefore, this instrument embodies sonic resistance, cultural resilience, and represent echoes of defiance. I thank you for your attention.
Well, thank you so much, Dr. Torrell Brown. This is very interesting and quite informative. We'll leave the questions to the end of the session. Thank you. We move on to the next presentation, and this one is titled Identities, Politics of Place, and Traditional Urban Space, Case Study of Food Markets in Southwest Nigeria by Dr. Odiale. Dr.
Yeah,
Odiale, are you loading up? Thank you.
yeah. I'm trying to load up. Um, Let me just see. Share screen.
While Dr. Odiale is loading up, his abstract says an examination of Akure and Ibadan food markets offers a prism through which to view wider processes of change in two African cities as they relate to traditional and modern practices of food production and consumption. Part of the problem with the market situation in these cities are rooted in the way that different groups are acting according with differing interpretations of the world. There we go, Dr. Odiale.
Yeah, good afternoon, good morning, good evening, everyone. My name is Dr. Timothy Sheyi Odeyale. I hope you can see my screen.
Yes, we can.
Okay, so in my native language, we say Ekujometa o Ekushe in my own local language, yeah, in Nigeria. So the topic before me that I'm trying to present is on identities, politics of place, and traditional urban space, case study of food markets in Southwest Nigeria. The topic itself is loaded. We have identities there, talk about urban space, and the whole thing is deeply connected with the concept of urban studies, where the physical layout and the use of urban space and area actively shape social identities and become the stage or the platform for power struggle. I've been looking at this topic for some time now in various formats, and it has been a challenging topic indeed because of its impact on development in our area. The design and control of urban space is never neutral, but it's an expression of ideologies and power relation within the various agents of change and actors and stakeholders in the built environment, which are actually founded on interest, their worldview, and desire for modernization. That's what I've come to, discover. And these various actors and stakeholders might be politicians, the elites, the policymakers, the design professionals, the urban users, the communities, and they have impact in how the urban space in our part of the world is being seen. And that places family in the aspect of identities, which has to do with images, with branding, with iconography, with landmarks, with symbols, with cultural connotations and rituals, which sometimes might be tangible or tangible or intangible, as the case may be. And this embodies the city history, the architecture, the built environment, and also the intangible and imperceptible ones that has to do with the resident perception, the interconnections, and the city branding. And within all this space, we have a kind of interplay of power between these actors, which determines how those space is produced, is consumed, and contested. So I've been trying to look at that. And within this, whole thing is the connection of architecture and food and shelter. And many a times in our own traditional format of the city development, we have the tradition, which is anchored on the way people feel the world and the past culture. And one of those entities is the palace of the king, which is always at the center of the city. And at the very mouth of the palace of the king is what we call the food market. So they are connected together, and many times shape the way the city is being viewed. And so there's a strong connection between this food production and architecture and urban planning. But this relationship have not been fully explored in literature for some time. And we need to look at how these factors are being reinterpreted and shape the way things are viewed in our part of the world. In the midst of global changes, in the midst of climate change, in the midst of sustainability discourse, we find that the way things are being done in those parts of the world actually impact on the livability in the city and is connected to what happened in the rural setting. So we have many at times reduction in the access to water, in impacting the health of the people, and loss of biodiversity. And as part of that, there is what we call, this migration, people moving, uh, urbanization taking place, and we have this rapid urbanization taking place in our part of the world, and many times the population is even increasing. So, but what we discover is that the earth is still the same. Part of the country, we cannot increase the land. So, what can we do? That all these aspects, when they are shaping development of the city, how to contain them, and how to harness their strengths and reduce the impact on the weakness or the shortcomings of the city. So we are firmly placed in the issues of undernourished people, and according to data available, Sub-Saharan Africa is huge in terms of paying attention to the uh, food availability, impact on the undernourishment people. So there's a kind of connection there as to the comfort, the livability of people in the urban center, what we call the urban poor, and the prosperity or the sustainability of the city that we are finding. And to do that very well, we have to look at the culture. We have to consider what we call anthropology of the people, which is firmly rooted in the way people think, in the way people, in the belief system that shapes the understanding of the past and actually impacts the present development and future vision of the city, as the case may be. There's always this struggle with the elite trying to modernize the city and the urban core area, and whereas we have on the other hand, the low income people, the middle income people that believes in holding on to the past. So there's a kind of conflict, a politics of power that is ensued. And many times we need to think and look at this society as someone mentioned it, that developing countries offer some deep challenges to the goal of providing for basic needs and decent quality of life in an environmentally and socially responsible way. Most research and development intervention focus on the understanding of these challenges are often granted solutions in the precedent from the so-called developed world. Many a times, some things that happen in other parts of the world may not actually fit in to provide solutions to what we face in sub-Saharan Africa, in Africa as a whole. So we need to pay more attention to those factors that are imperceptible, that are rooted in the past, so that we can actually help with the present situation and plan for the future. So we need to ask those questions. Who are the players that are involved in these activities, whether food, whether infrastructural provisions? Who are those people involved in the practices, in the processes, in the production, in the transportation, and the cultural practices? And what has it got to do with the past, with the present, and for the future? And the interdependency between relationship, what are part of the questions that I asked in my research, and which I provide some of the findings in this discussion. What are the interdependency function or relation between the market and the city? And now this relationship is being adapted by the city rapid growth and modernization. So that's why, to look at very well, I have to consider the identity, I have to look at the culture, and many times it's expressed in their ideological concepts, its impact on the development of sociological understanding, and many times they may not be material. The material one are the infrastructure we look at, the architecture of the marketplace, the architecture of the central part of the city, and the fringes as well. Sometimes those changes are not just ordinary, they are rooted in the unseen information, the custom, the norm, the behavior, the cultural identity, which are not material, which are rooted in all those past behaviors of the occupant of the city. So we need to unpack those issues that has to do with rituals, with belief system, with myth, religious practices that many times in the modern times we are ignoring them, but they are there. Without proper understanding of these, mechanism of the past, we can't properly plan for the city. We can't plan for the sustainability of this area. There is a kind of situation that occurred when the government is trying to move the market because they see it as eyesore from the center of the city. They want to move it out of the city, and it was kind of conflict. We have an example in our part of the world, that they have to the people that believed that you can't separate the palace of the king from the traditional market. They have to protest. Though the government tried to push it away to the end of the city because they felt it's an eyesore. They tried to move it around, but the people insisted. And that's kind of things that, because of lack of understanding of the connection between the past and the present, there's a kind of politics of power ensued, and they have to find a way to resolve the matter, for the development of. So when we want to look at that, the connection with infrastructure, the built environment, with human attitude, with what we call the farmland, and the class level, the elite, the income people, the middle income earners has to be fully looked at. And so the case study is focusing on Nigeria. Nigeria is one of the most populous countries in Africa. 1 out of 5 Black African is a Nigerian. So it is important for us to understand these things that happen there, for us to be able to plan for this huge, enormous population in that part of the world. And 70% of our population, they are youth. So the next 30 years, 40 years, 50 years, we need to plan and think about them. So attention needs to be placed on what we call the socio-cultural issues, and to review the historical, the spatial, and the anthropological models, and to be able to plan sustainable future for these teeming population. So there's a connection between the home at the micro level and the market at the macro level, and the farmland on the other hand, which can imagine paradigm that we are trying to understudy. So when I was trying to do that, I have to break them into components. The cultural component, which has to be what we call the socio-cultural institution, which has to express in metaphysical issues, the myth, the culture. Then on the other hand, the people, those class of people, the elite, the middle income earners, the low income earners as well. Then the production, the globalization of marketplace, and also the urban space, the territory. And in doing that, we have to also, that's connection I'm trying to display in this diagram. On one hand, the government structure, on the other hand, the policymaker, on the other hand, the people themselves, and the production that ensue. All this interplay needs to be studied, understood for proper policy to help with the developmental agenda of that part of the world. So I looked at Southwest Nigeria. It's on the corner there. We have about 6 states. Nigeria has 36 states. And we are trying, I try to focus on the 6 states on the Southwest, which we call them the Yorubas. There are about 45% population of Nigeria in Oyo, Ogun, Osun, Lagos, and Ondo states of part of Nigeria. And we have several markets in this place, which I'm going to quickly talk about. One of them is in Akure. That's the capital city in Ondo State, in the southwest Nigeria. We have another one in Ibadan. We have one of the largest population states in Nigeria, even in Africa, called Lagos. About 18 million people occupy a very small area with intervening issues. So this city of Akure has an ancient palace that is more than 900 years old, and it has about 18 courtyards in it. So it's kind of reveal a strong identity with the past, and the palace is still there. The ancient palace there with about 18 courtyards, and at the front of the palace is a kind of revered ancient land called Ojaoba. That's the king's palace. At the mouth of at the entrance of the palace, where rituals take place. When a new king wants to come in, they have to take the new king to the palace. They will seal up the palace for like 3 months. Nobody will go in there to perform some rituals for the crowning of a new king. So when the government want to move that market from the center of, because they want the land for other things, for other developments, and the ancient understanding of that land, those traditional people refuse to allow the government to move that ancient market out there. So these are kind of things that interplay in the politics of place in the modern times. So we have different kind of market.
You have 2 minutes, 20 seconds.
Okay, so we have various part of the political market, the spiritual market. So we can see the markets in Lagos that there, the Igbo market is there, the Jewish market is there, and then we have the interplays of all these issues. So the data I used to analyze are presented there in figure 1, figure 2. We have the analysis of the data that has to be based on the gender divide and the place of the income. I can look at that later. The summary of those things that we asked in the questionnaire and interview were placed there. So we have this research finding that we need to study this planet to understand what is going on there. That the study and identified developmental issues include lack of planning on the part of the government, lack of coordination, failing infrastructure, poor housing condition, and then what do we do to address those matters? We have there. So we have those characteristics that are displayed in the urban core area and the type of changes that ensue there. In conclusion, I will get there. Research findings point to the fact that we have to, look at the economy of the market, the prevailing tribal, regional, and national political and socio-economic condition of the study area, clarify those issues, and then think of how to present a better future. So the understanding of the socio-cultural, economic, political, and religious role of food activities in the sustainable discourse that shapes sustainable behavior is paramount in the study of urban environment and the future of the city. The socio-political dimension of food is central to the people and sustainable growth of the built environment. Thank you. Peace to Africa.
Thank you so much, Dr. Odiale, and we look forward to asking some questions during the Q&A session. Right, let's move on to our next and last presentation here, which is titled Canadian Kitchens, Negative Health Impacts, Relational Risks, and Inequitable Treatment. Jackie, your timer is running. Okay.
I'm just getting the slide share set up here.
Okay.
Just one moment, please. Do you see that well enough?
Yes, we do.
Very good. Thank you. All right. There we have it then. Thank you very much. Okay. Well, hello, everyone. Thank you for having me here today. I'd like to just acknowledge the organizers for all of the work involved in creating such a comprehensive conference. And my piece this morning will be slightly different from my colleagues who have gone before me, but I would like to just acknowledge that the work I'm doing here is in conjunction with Chef Arthur Dale Nutt. And our focus has been on Canadian kitchens, the negative health impacts, relational risks, and inequitable treatment, and looking at the psychological consideration of what might be considered the darker underbelly of the hospitality industry in Canada. And offering his regrets today, as he's unable to attend, is Chef Dale. And there he is. I'd like to just highlight that this is actually our journey. It's related to the reality of kitchen life in restauranteering in Canada. And we are a psychologist and chef partnership. And so we do have some lived experience together, years of navigating the pressures of professional kitchens. This narrative research is actually very personal for both of us. So as part of this duo, if you will, I'm just going to speak for Chef Dale. So my husband has shaped himself through many decades of spending time in professional kitchen life. He's been working there for 35 years. He's captained kitchens across Canada. And over the last 12 years together in our partnership, I've certainly had the opportunity to recognize the unseen side of hospitality, the burnout, the missed family moments, and the family impact, as well as the physical and emotional cost of sustaining an industry that often depends on people who are stretched to their very limits. So what I share today is not only about some data that we have had the opportunity to review, and I will be able to share that information to anyone who would like to see the data that I draw upon. So just email me at the end if you wish to do so. But it's about our lived experience, and we're looking at a qualitative research and insider knowledge, if you will. And we do have hope for change. We'd like to be advocates within the industry to see change come forward. When we think about the unseen toil in and the toll of kitchen life in Canada, to outsiders, the kitchens can seem very vibrant, creative, even glamorous. And behind the scenes, there's an entirely different reality. There are incredibly long, grueling hours, relentless pressure, tremendous physical exhaustion, and mental fatigue. The shifts stretch late into the night, weekends disappear into service for others, and holidays become some of the busiest, most demanding times. The strain is not limited to the chef, of course, or the kitchen staff. It really goes over and into the families that absorb this. There were many nights, for an example, where I'm conscious that Dale would have arrived home far too tired to speak. Those moments of connection slip by because there's this separation, the fatigue. And of course, one of the things we have to consider is that this is not unique to our partnership. This is the story of the hospitality sector, where physical pain, mental strain, financial precarity, and disrupted family life blends into a pattern that is really truly normalized, rarely addressed, and almost never openly acknowledged. The physical and mental impacts are significant. There's heavy workloads, and this causes long-term strain, mentally and physically. There's heightened stress and emotional depletion, which with limited downtime and limited time for recovery or reconnection, families grow apart. Spouses and extended family, children, all of those relationships are disrupted. And so part of the culture actually disrupts the possibility for families to be seen and cared for fully. So kitchen work affects the body of the individuals involved in those kitchens, but also all of the relationship systems around it. Chef Dale often quotes the Joker when talking about the hospitality industry, and he comments that the business needs an enema. And really, it's really a fitting metaphor. After more than 3 decades in kitchens, he's witnessed firsthand how that structure of industry sets people up for burnout. Productivity expectations are unrealistic, staffing is often inadequate, and kitchens rely on workers who are exhausted, undervalued, and at times seen as just very replaceable in the eyes of management. Comments like, if you're tired, you can be replaced. If you can't make it, don't bother coming in, instead of looking for backups. So despite their incredible skill and amazing artistry and the strength and persistence that kitchen staff have, they are amongst the lowest paid, and they are often not even receiving equitable income when compared to front of house workers who might receive tips. In addition, the front of house workers have the potential to receive the praise, while the back of house staff are the ones who've prepared and created the opportunity for beautiful food, for families to get together in celebration. And so it's not seen work very often. Additionally, we'd have to consider some of the challenges that have come when you think about the glamour versus the grit. The public, as I've noted, sees artistry, and we often see that on social media. We see it on television. There's this great deal of influx of food shows, all pushing the idea of how beautiful and creative and the prestige around culinary skill and work. However, the reality doesn't support that. We also need to consider that we also have post-pandemic pressures that has come as part of the challenge. And I'll get to that in just an additional moment. There's the invisibility of the labor and the mental health strain. And research does indicate a stark picture at the moment in many ways, but there are some pushes coming through in Australia, in the UK, and some spots in the US that are highlighting the importance of recognizing those challenges. Yet, many kitchen workers are indicating that they are not prepared to talk about their mental health challenges. They don't feel safe in creating those discussions. Substance use is among one of the highest for professions. Heavy alcohol and drug use are a frequent coping strategy in kitchens where breaks are rare, stress is constant, and it's really an industry where toughness is seen as a virtue. And so it's not so much about this is a moral failing in any kind of a way. This is really just an occupational hazard. And suicide rates in food service industries are alarmingly high globally. And food preparation workers, when we consider that it's a suicide index is higher than what would be seen in a national average. Further, in Australia, chefs are disproportionately represented in suicide statistics regardless of gender. So these numbers expose why many in the industry just whisper about the troubles that they might be having. They don't bring it forward. Because not only is there physical challenges, there's also violence in kitchens. So there's psychological, physical strain, and ultimately those numbers are not really credibly supported yet in Canada about these challenges. So there's some value for some additional work there. What we can certainly say is that there's invisible suffering. Stigma is preventing help seeking, and the structure of those environments are also not tending to offer support due to low wages, lack of benefits, and a high turnover just due to burnout itself. So the longevity of the worker isn't supported very easily or well. When we think about some of the post-pandemic pressures, it really did destabilize the restaurant industry overall. So of course there was financial pressures, and in an already fragile system, restaurants were shutting down overnight, and those who reopened might have had prohibitive costs, reduced staff, and customers weren't sure about coming back. And so in a business model that was already very tightly driven, the pandemic really broke open additional vulnerabilities. There was no safety net for many of those workers. And when that shut down, the opportunity for openings again meant that some of those staffings were much leaner. So many jobs were lost. Many chefs lost their entire craft in their perspective because there were changes to the industry that made it less filled with the artistry and the creativity that they might once have embraced. So there was supply chain shortages that were also part of the puzzle, in addition to survival mode decision-making from restaurateurs that really created an additional collapse within the artistry of chefs throughout. I can speak for Canada in that that's from a colloquial lens from many of the chefs who were in touch with Dale about their impact and loss of jobs. When we think about the impact on relationships, one of the things that has been noted as profound is the erosion of personal relationships. Chefs miss all the holidays, the birthdays, the kitchen staff don't get home for anniversaries, for school concerts. There's the time of when they are working often coincides with when celebrations would happen. And so families celebrate without their partner, their father, their brother, their son. And so it's a lonely place. There's isolation as a result of that. And while this is ironic, those chefs are creating celebrations for others while losing the connection to their own families. So this absence over time becomes grief. There's always the empty chair at the family dinner table. And the photographs don't show those family members who are toiling hard in those kitchens, who often are saying they wish they could be home, they wish they could be with their family. This isn't shared just by chefs. This is all of the kitchen staff that are finding that they are missing those beautiful opportunities. And it erodes the fabric of family life.
You
Dale
have
and I are
3 minutes and
Thank you very
26
much. Thank you very much, Professor Michael. We do look at the idea of reimagining kitchen culture. So instead of looking at them as disposable, investing in them, creating equitable wages and fair scheduling, building team culture rather than burnout cycles, and embracing kitchen staff as valued family members and providers, and recognizing they need to also have time to recharge and renew. What we are looking at in terms of our hopes are to prioritize mental health. Benefits would include real mental health support, counseling, substance use programs, and flexible access to care. Leaders would openly discuss mental health to reduce stigma and set the tone for a culture of support rather than silence. And providing substance use support would indicate confidential pathways to treatment without punishment or job loss, and recognizing that addiction grows from chronic stress, exhaustion, and the trauma inside of the kitchen, in addition to the expectation in many kitchens that you drink and you use substances as part of the method of coping. Equitable wages and compensation would be a focal point where there's deserving wages, benefits, and scheduling practices that acknowledge experience and humanity. Suicide prevention and early intervention programs, including mental health first aid, safe talk assist, any of the program that looks to enforce kitchen leaders as ways of being conduits of first line support. Family time would be considered sacred, so flexible scheduling and realistic staffing prevent burnout. And additionally, we would look at building teams, not work units, a sense of culture that prevents isolation and improves morale. And getting into the last pieces, seeing the whole person. Individuals that create human leadership are seen in kitchens as the emotional intelligence and the technicians themselves, and seeing them not as kitchen workers, but as leaders, professional development, and offering the opportunity to end exploitive work practices and safety protocols. So we're hopeful that to honor the sustenance, we can honor those who make it and create dignity, care, and systemic change that shifts the values in Canadian kitchens to creating sustainability and increased resilience. Thank you very much for this time.
Thank you so much, Dr. Smith. We have questions. We're in question time now. Jackie, Dr. Linda.
That was wonderful. Thank you so much for that very, very interesting session. I certainly saw a connection between the themes. I would like to start, though, in terms of Dr. Terrell Brown, specifically around the context of the pan starting from a place of rage and fury, it seems, and then ultimately ending up as an expression of joy. Now, I'm a clinical psychologist, as you already know. That is a very, very long pathway, and I'm interested to hear how people who used that form of music shifted from its birthplace in rage and fury to exuberance and joy, as we saw. And then my second question is actually for Dr. Odelaye. It's about the idea of the food market being an eyesore. The government sees the market as an eyesore. But anybody who's traveled anywhere in the world knows that the market is the soul, it's the heart and soul of the city or the town. So I find it interesting that the people understand that, but the government does not. Could you comment on that? But first, if Dr. Terrell Brown, you could start us off, that would be terrific. Thank you.
Sure, thank you for your question. So if I get it right, you're asking about the shift from fury to joy, right? So there were a number of events that took place between then to when PAN was accepted. And some of those events would have included, now remember, it was marginalized to these communities and thought to be only Black persons or African descent involved in Pan. However, there was a sort of machismo feeling to it, image to it, and therefore some what was termed as white boys. So persons from higher strata in life, the elite, would have wanted to experience this machismo, and therefore they got involved in Pan. And when they did that, it became a bit more accepted. And then we also had a group called Girl Pat, who formed a steel band, and they got involved in it. But one of the very significant things that happened was there was a British festival happening, and Antigua, I think, was going to participate in that festival. And when Trinidadians heard that, they said, but we are the ones who made the steel pan, and therefore we need to go. So they put together a band called the Trinidad All Steel Percussion Orchestra, TASPO for short, and they went to Britain, and therefore, because they participated in an elite competition, a festival, it was accepted. So from all of that, from all the different stratas of acceptance, it started to bring joy. When persons actually heard that a pan can play different genres of music, it became something of joy and pleasure. I hope I answered your question.
Okay. Thank you. And then the second question, I think, is to Dr. Odeale.
Yes. Very good question from Dr. Linda. We have this conflict between the government and I class them as the elite on one hand and the general population. The elite, they want to bring in this Western idea of how the city should look like, which is good on one hand. They have this personal interest, they have this thing about how the city should look like. They have their own mental idea. So, and in that bid, they want to demolish what we call urban renewal on one hand, and there are various mechanisms for urban renewal. One of them is to demolish what we call urban clearance. So they just want to, take away everything that they look unacceptable to their own worldview. They've been to Paris, they've been to London, they've been to Switzerland, they've been to New York, they've been to Japan, and they want to bring in what we call top-down development ideas on the population, ignoring the bottom-up approach. So because of that, they just come with decree and bulldozer to bulldoze the so-called traditional market that is a bit not what they think should be. And that caused the kind of disruption and clashes and power tussle between the policymakers on one hand and the entire population. So they want to also provide a place for their own way of life, what I call vehicular, parking space in the market. When they come to market, they discover their wives, they don't have a place to park their, various big cars. So they felt, let's look for car park. Let's demolish some part of the old ancient market to provide modern place for our big cars. And that's, is their own interest they are portraying. And it's just because the people itself, the traditional people felt this will impact on the culture, on the tradition of the land. So there has to be a kind of this negative voices. How do I put opposition voices to what the government is trying to do? And in fact, the government went to build a new market entirely at the outskirts of the city, and they tried to, forcefully remove them to that other part, but they refused to go. So along the line, they have to compromise. They demolished some part of the ancient market and put up a new building at the front. But at the back of the new building, we still have the ancient market, are still being preserved. That is the kind of thing that ensued. So I felt the government need to pay more attention and listen more to the people instead of having their own ideas of how things should be in opposition to the general population of the ancient cities across Southwest Nigeria.
Okay, thank you, Dr. Odeale. Dr. Domingo?
Thank you. with all this conversation around food, markets, and music, this has gotten me in my time right now very hungry and eager to explore my local market. But I'm wondering if Professor Giovanni De Grecia is still with us, because my question is for him specifically. Although I have lots of questions for the
Yeah,
other
I'm
presenters.
here. I'm here.
Oh, yes, thank you. Thank you, sir.
My pleasure.
I appreciate your presentation, even being mobile while you're doing the presentation is quite a skill to learn, which I'd like to learn from you. But as the research director of the university, your presentation was profound because having a more broader view of teaching research and the third dimension of really arts and really the bigger contribution interests me. So I'm curious if you know of models perhaps in North America that demonstrate the same sort of framework that you have expressed with what you did in the European context.
Thank you, dear Professor Domingo. I teach for American University in Italy. It's American campus of USOC, University Study Abroad Consortium. So I just had opportunity to analyze university in the United States. And usually they have a metrics to manage, we can say the progress, the performance, but just still related and connected in general on sustainable development goal. And usually there is no real focus on conservatory music, on cultural and art university. And I think, it's a totally different approach because we are not talking about, patent, we are not talking about intellectual property, how many new cone spin-off we have created. So it's why I probably just because I also work in a conservatory of music, like a manager, probably it's why I try to give a new dimension because the third mission is so important, as also to disseminate the work of the first and second mission. So it's why probably we have around the world best practices, but more general. So let's take 17 Sustainable Development Goals and try to understand if they fit with the university performance, just in general. So there is nothing only focus on music and art. It's why I try to give this new suggestion, probably like a provocation more, just to start a new perspective.
Well, this conversation is a great start, and I appreciate your work in this, and perhaps the future holds that for our institutions collectively around the world. So thank you.
Oh, my pleasure. Thank you, Professor Domingo.
Okay, thank you. Dr. Nublakun.
Hello, everyone. Yes, echo Dr. Domingo's thing of why are we talking about food right before lunch? It makes me very hungry. And speaking of which, this question, I have two questions, but I'm going to address the first one first to Dr. Schmidt. We're halfway through the Nexus conference and I see a thread of invisibility, right? You use this word today. Yesterday we heard about the invisible diagnosis with the ORS, one presentation there. And then Dr. Linder talked about shame. And that's sort of that invisible thing that people sometimes have, even if they function very well. And you talk about the invisible suffering in the kitchen, which is great to bring it to the forefront. So you had a whole slide of recommendations and how things can change, but as with everything that's already so entrenched, change is hard to come by, right? So if but big changes come with very small steps. So what would your recommendation be for what would be sort of the first steps in having this change to help families and those who are the invisible workers in back of house at restaurants?
Thank you so much for taking the time to ask that question. We do see that in UK as well as in Austria, there are some opportunities for some change projects going on right now. So some chefs have already started talking, and they're including the voices of their kitchen staff to make sure that people are heard. So they're starting some movements that are talking about how can we approach restaurateurs, how can we approach major management to talk about these discussions of what are we doing to make changes. When we look at some of the United Nations commentary about decent work, the things that we know about equity, about being seen, about having reasonable pay, about having benefits, all of those pieces around that research around decent work is not really being met in some of those situations, including immigrant workers that are not being seen, who are being brought in and working under duress. As well, many individuals who are either gender diverse or are females are not also seen. So equitable opportunities for advancement or being seen in that industry are also not always noted. So when it comes down to the conversations about what can we be doing in Canada, I think we do have a couple of models to start looking at. What are we doing at provincial and federal installation of saying, what are we doing to protect workers? And if that isn't happening, because not all of those kitchens are unionized, some of those questions might not only be about union, but about creating the opportunity for real discussion. So some of those would be coming into conferences, and some of those food conferences, culinary opportunities, but also into legislation opportunities to say, look, provincially, we're not protecting these people. Women are not being protected. Trans persons are not being seen. There's violence in the workplace, and it's perpetuated consistently by the culture. Those individuals are not brought up to bear to say, you actually have perpetuated violence here. You threatened this person. They don't show up today. They're tired. They're missing their child's medical appointment or surgery. They lose a job. That's not being brought to bear. There's not enough information being shared about what your rights really are when you're in kitchen work. So I think that those are certainly part of the puzzle, but we can certainly tag on to some of those other movements that are going on right now with chefs talking forward facing in the UK and as well in Australia, talking about what can we do to make some of those changes. And I think that those could be some starting points for sure.
Thank you. And you have another question, Dr.
Yes,
Lubakun?
it's more of a curiosity, really. It's for Dr. Odiale. So you have this survey, and you surveyed all the people in this metropolis. Has your study findings, and you have findings, have your study findings reached policymakers and leadership? Have you, I mean, part of the studies is that government is unplanned and et cetera, so there might not be a great, reception there. But I just wondered if that was, if your study findings had made it to them, and if that, and if it did, have they taken it into consideration?
Yes, we've been able to go into what we call advocacy. Talking to the government, providing what we call enlightenment to the population and policymakers at the same time. They are listening, but it's like I wouldn't want to go to some areas in our own part of the world because something greed in our own part of the world, what we call personal interests and corruption is there, which is kind of, not allowing them to do what they really want to do to help. There are so many competing interests. Some of the land in the center of the city have become a very choice land, which attract huge money. When you want to, if you just remove the market and put in housing there, or skyscraper, put in, supermarket, mall, instead of traditional markets. So there's this kind of idea that what is culture? What is, money is more important, that kind of a thing. So we have to let them understand that the identity is important. Money might be very good, but sometimes you have to, reduce the urge for money and concentrate more on your identity, on the memory, the collective memory of society. The culture must be preserved for the generation yet unborn. Let them know what we have, the legacy of our forebears, 200 years old. That palace I told you about is 900 years old and it's still standing with the various materials they used in building the old ancient palace, but somebody is thinking something of demolishing some part of it because the king wants to erect a new building, that is more Western, which is a bit unbelievable. So we have to kind of, plead with them. We have to kind of help them, talk to them, and they are listening. I hope that they will listen more. That is the joy of research,
And
that
that
the
listening
findings can
can,
actually have some impact in real life,
Yeah.
the society. And also the packing thing. We have to let them know that it's not every time you have to bring the car to the market. You can go pedestrian. It's even good for your health. Park your car somewhere a bit far and trek to the market. Enjoy the ancient traditional outlook of the area, and that's more healthy than every time and then you want to come out down from the car and just shop and enter the car again immediately. So
it's
that's not the
definitely a loss of
compromise we've
community
been able
there
to do.
that we've been talking a lot about here. So thank you so
Yeah.
much.
We have a question from one of the attendees, Dr. Tyrell, Davis Tyrell. Are you able to speak?
Yes.
Dr. Carrillo, Dr. Carrillo is on the attendee side of the conference, so he may not have audio option. Davis,
Oh,
could you put your question into the Q&A and we will, Dr. Carrillo will read it for you.
okay. All right. Dr. Torrell Brown was on the. You wanted to say something?
Oh no, sorry. I thought it was my name was called.
Oh no,
Sorry.
no. It's one of the attendees.
Okay.
While that's going on, I have a question for you. My question is, do you see the pan having a competition with other musical instruments like the guitar, the drum, the ones that we have right now?
Yeah. Well, let me just say I'm a song bias, but I don't think it's
Right.
a competition. Because for one, the pan is so dynamic and it can, because of the range of notes that you can get. So there are different types of instruments in the family of pan. So there are the tenor pans that can play higher pitches, similar to a violin or flute or so. And then there are different pans that have different ranges of music, similar to an orchestra. So when an orchestra comes together and get ranges from soprano, alto, tenor, bass, etc. Similarly, the steel band with that family of instrument can achieve playing any genre of music. So if there has to be a competition, it will be with another orchestra. Now, if we are going with like the examples you gave, drum and so on, that cannot play a melody, there's no really match there because the steel pan is a melodic percussion instrument. So I think the best matchup will be other melodic instruments. And yeah, we can have that. And as a matter of fact, we do have a competition for schools called our music festival, National Music Festival. And sometimes we do have a steel ensemble going against a mixed instrument ensemble. So it happens at times, yes.
Okay, thank you. Thank you for that response. There's a question for Dr. Smith. Put it in the chat here.
Oh, yes, I see
It
it
says,
here.
how does kitchen work affect women, specifically nowadays?
Oh, thank you for that question, Dr. Teromi. There's been a bit of research that really underlines the idea that women in kitchens are not being advanced and are not seen in the same way that might be a male who would be in the same kitchen. So hierarchy would indicate that from the past history, the captain of the ship, if you will, was really gentlemen who would be manning the kitchens. And so still that hierarchy has prevented women from advancing. And it's noted particularly in some research that indicated that women are also struggling to be able to manage their work-life balance as a result of the expectation to be so very present, if they were in fact in a management role within the kitchen. The time that many kitchens run, particularly restaurants, are into the evening in many of those professional environments. Thus, those same individuals who are the primary caregiver in the home are not able to be at home to take care of the children in the same way. So there's a disparity around, are they getting adequate support? Is there adequate wages to be able to have the advantage of childcare? There's a number of questions that are going to be begged as a result of that. Further, if you think about decent work from that perspective, that would have been discussed from Bloomstein, Kelleran, Diamanti. They talk about the idea of the psychological perspective of, do you have enough access to be able to support your family? Do you have enough access to be able to live well? And the question would be, really, Dr. Taromi, maybe there is some problems in that framework, because if we don't have the ability to pay somebody adequately enough and childcare is a question mark, you're going to have some drawbacks around being able to see somebody advance in those kitchens, as it were. So there's a number of elements, including sexual violence, that's within the framework of kitchens, that still has not been taken care of adequately. And certainly women are often in those situations, as well as trans persons, where there's sexual violence within those environments as well. So those are all questions that need to have some further address within Canadian research to support what we can do to make that change and create safe and healthy family balance. Thank you for your question.
Thank you so much, Dr. Smith. I think we're still trying to get a question from Dr. Tyrell, Davis Tyrell.
It's
I
now
haven't
in the
seen.
chat. It's now in the Q&A section, Dr. Kirill.
Okay. Professor Giovanni, are you there? Are you still there?
Yes, I'm here.
Yeah, there's a question for you here. I will read it out. How is the morale of indigenous people affected by the stealing of arts by colonizers and cultural oppressors? What does your university do to advocate for the return of stolen arts from the British and Vatican museums? Did you get that?
Can you hear me?
No, we didn't hear you respond. I put the question in the chat if you were not able to get all of it. Are you able to see your chat?
Yes, but probably. And
Your line is breaking. And now you are muted.
For those who don't know this, Professor de Grecia is heroically joining this conference from a train station in Italy, where he is operating off his mobile phone and still with us somehow, amazingly.
Okay. While he's figuring out, I have a question for Dr. Odiale on food in Nigeria. You have a huge country there with different groups, tribal groupings. How do you? My question is, the food types that you have, are they common across, and therefore people can just access them, or there are some differences, regional differences within Nigeria?
Yes, very good question. Thank you very much, Dr. Kariwo, Professor Kariwo. Yes, Nigeria is a huge country with over 200 different languages and tribes in that vast land, and we have some major groups, or what we call tribe, that are quite big and a bit homogeneous. The Yoruba, the Hausa, Fulani, the Igbo groups of group, and then we have the the Ijaw, we have the Bibios, we have the people Nupe in the middle part of Nigeria, and they have different kind of food, huge area of food. In my own part of southwest Nigeria, which are Yoruba, we have popular yam, powdered yam. We have tomato, we have rice, which is common to all the groups. Everybody take rice. You must have heard of jollof rice. That's common to us in West Africa, which is very delicious. So we have other types of food that are actually indigenous to these big tribes, to say. The northern people, they have that kind of food. So the availability of the food is also a challenge now, because most of the people that they are moving from the rural area, the agricultural land, they are coming to do what we call the white collar jobs in the big cities. So we have fewer and fewer, farmers. There's even this problem with Nigeria now that is what we call the farmer header clash, where you have people that are doing livestock, thing, livestock rearing of animal and cattle, coming to swath of land, destroying, farmland, reducing access to food, which is even a problem on its own that the government is trying to solve. The problem of security of clashes in the northern part of Nigeria, where the food production takes place. So that's a big problem now that the government is trying to, find a solution. Another part is the climate change, the deforestation and the certification on both ends taking place in the northern parts of Nigeria, and where we have the food like the tomato, the vegetable coming from. So these are the kind of things we are trying to find solution to find food for this increased population that we're having. Nigeria now is about 230 million people, and by 2050 it's predicted to become 350 million, the biggest in Africa, and also going to become big like India and China in another 30, 40 years. So what do we do? Is a question that I have to take home myself.
Right. Oh yeah. Big challenges over there, definitely. Do we have Professor Giovanni now? If you can unmute yourself. No.
Hello.
He's here. Yes, we can hear you.
And I think that the problem can you hear me?
It's
Can you hear
breaking.
me? Can you hear me?
Yes,
Yes,
now.
it's
Oh,
best to
sorry.
leave your video off. It's best to leave your
Yes.
video off so your audio comes in more clearly.
Okay, perfect. Okay, thank you for the question. It's so interesting. The problem of stolen art also is a big problem, also for Italians. Let's think about Mona Lisa. But that is just a joke for French attack in the past with Napoleon. But the real problem of indigenous people, I think that probably I can talk especially for Vatican Museum, and probably there is a truly ethical conclusion demand that the Vatican Museum move behind being monument of historical acquisition to become leader in modern restitution. First of all, because they are not only an cultural entity, but they are also a religious entity. So probably they can give the example and be a guide to others. But this requires a very urgent, we can say, repatriation of sacred and cultural object, and probably it could be a first way to start a new we can say a new absolutely way to create connection, not only just a form of respect for indigenous, but it's a new way to give probably a new perspective to other people. You know why? You can't appreciate an object, you can't appreciate art of another population, of another people outside of the real and natural environment. So, you know what I think and what I am seeing around, especially Italy, but also if we talk about British Museum, uh, there is the real way to create connection, because museum is not only a way where teach something, it's not only a show, but is an important moment to create awareness about our evolution. It's a real moment to create something that we can call a museum experience. So it's why we can say to use this kind of art, like we can say just to probably give a show to the winners. So probably it's something that we can give to the past, and for the evolution of a university, of the research and artistic museum, the real way is to create a new dimension, I think. So use to say a new words. The new words is inclusion with indigenous people and inclusion with the culture, because the only way to really understand the culture is through the language of the population, is through the roots of the people, not close in four wall of the foreign museum. So it's very, thank you for this question. It's very interesting. I wish to keep in touch with the person, with the
Right.
professor of the auditor, because probably we can start the research to understand that. And you know, Italy, but especially UK, Great Britain has a lot of art from around the world. I talk about India, I'll talk about indigenous people around the world, because it was the biggest emperor of the world. It's normal. Anyway, thank you so much for this interesting question.
Well, thank you so much, Professor Giovanni. You have now closed our session, and it's lunchtime. Thank you, everybody. We have a lunch break now.